Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing a redraw of an old failed art piece. It's been a while, but I'll talk about that later. First, let me talk about this drawing a little bit. I made this piece back in 2019 before I did any digital art. So if you notice, I made a spelling mistake with the word fault. I spelled it without the U, and sadly, since this was done traditionally, there was no fixing it. So now, 3 years later, I'm revisiting the drawing. The character is Alejandro from my story Don't Sleep. I decided to revisit this piece because I ended up testing positive for Rona and was in isolation for a while. And that did kick my ass, but as soon as I was able to, I went back to work and I started working on the Don't Sleep story, which I'll be turning into an audio series right here on the channel. So if you wanted to audition, there are still roles for casting, and there's also going to be another round of casting later. So if you're interested in auditioning, I'll leave a link to a document in the description with all the information. Since I've been working on the story again, it's been in the front of my brain, and I decided to remake this piece because it's haunted me. And so I decided now would be a good time to fix it. It's really fun to remake old art pieces since it's a good way to check your progress and how much you've grown over the years. It's super easy to get caught in the loop of comparing yourself to other artists, especially with social media. So I found this to be a good way to just take a nice break from that and compare your progress to just yourself. I think this one was especially cool because I got to see my growth from traditional art to digital art. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of art from when I first started my digital art journey because I kept it all on a thumb drive, and sadly that thumb drive broke, so I lost 2 years worth of work, which is heartbreaking to this day. So this is kind of the closest thing I can get to a comparison. I wanted to keep the piece pretty faithful to the original, but just expand on it a little bit more. I decided to change Al's pose. In the original piece, Al was hunched over and had his head down. I did this because I wanted to show him being protective and scared. This is actually a scene from the story. I won't give too much away, but I had originally drawn it to make him look weak, to make him kind of be fearful and uneasy. After revisiting the story and the character a little bit more, I decided that it should be a little bit different, and while he is still scared of his mind, he should be facing his fears instead. So that's why his pose is a little bit different than the original, but I think it fits more than the original did. And that's the whole point of remakes, you get to make adjustments. I also added a rosary in his hand because that is also a large part of his character. Alejandro is Mexican, and religion is a large part of the culture. And while I'm not religious myself, I was raised with a lot of religious beliefs and a lot of superstitious beliefs, which are often tied to religion. So I wanted to add that into his character as well, and it's something that I explore within the story too. One thing I wanted to keep the most was the movement of the flyers. I really liked how they turned out in the original piece. In the original, I ended up only having 5 flyers, but in the remake, I added a 6th one. At the time of making the original one, I think I had just forgotten to add that 6th character on the flyer, so I didn't actually include him in the original. Originally, I wanted this piece to be a spotlight on Al, but for the redraw, I wanted to have more environment built into it. The hardest part about this was probably the text. I'm still not sure if I really like the placement of it, but I think it still looks pretty good. I was very careful about the spelling this time around. I wanted to make it look similar to how people carve things onto trees, you would see names and stuff, so I kept the writing similar to that sort of style. The yall was pretty easy because there was 4 trees, but the fault was a lot harder because there wasn't enough trees, so I decided to put it on the floor, which I'm still not sure if I really like that placement, but I think it still looks okay. Alright, let me give y'all an update on what's been going on. Like I mentioned at the start of the video, it's been a while since I posted. I originally was going to take a small break because I had gone on a trip with some friends and ended up catching Rona. And so I was in isolation and it hit me pretty hard and I couldn't work for a while. So that was part of the reason why I had taken the break. But that small break caused me a lot of trouble. Because I was taking 3 summer classes and because I was out of commission for a few days, I ended up falling way behind. If you've never taken a summer course, I don't really suggest it. It's basically an entire semester worth of information that's squashed into about a month or so. So once I was able to work again, I was pretty behind and was playing catch up pretty much until the end of my classes. After that, I was absolutely exhausted. And since I'm on summer break, I went on a few more trips to see some families and just have an actual break because I was pretty much got out of school, had like 2 weeks, and then went back into school. I went back into school for my summer classes. Recently, I've also been having a few health problems, nothing majorly concerning, but just some struggles with my anxiety. So I've been trying to go a little bit easier on myself and just not stress too much. I've talked a little bit about my anxiety before, and in this past year or so, I've been really trying to tackle it. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but I'm working on it. Which kind of brings me to my next point. Making it sound like a presentation. Anyway, school will be starting again in less than a week, and there's going to be a lot of adjusting to do. So I might not have a set schedule of when I'll be back posting for a little bit until I can get my bearings on things and get everything in some sort of order. I'm also in my last year of college, so things are going to get a little crazy, and there's going to be a lot of moving parts. So that's a little bit of what's been going on. Now back to the don't sleep stuff. I am so excited to be writing this story, and even though it's not how I originally wanted it to be told, I still think it's going to be really cool. I'm just kind of making do with what I can right now, but I will make this into a final version of a video game one day. For now, I'll just be leaving a trail of breadcrumbs for future me to pick up later. How I'm currently writing this, it's going to be more like a creepypasta, and it will be similar to the Draw the Story series with voice actors. So I'm very excited to have a pretty large cast. It'll probably be the largest cast that I've worked with so far. So there's going to be quite a few people, and I'm very excited for it. Horror is one of my favorite genres, and I'm really excited to be making my own horror series. As a kid, I would listen to a lot of creepypasta stories, and so I'm very excited to have my own horror story. This is probably my favorite type of genre to write with as well, because you can get really descriptive with things, and I just think that's great. I really love listening to creepypastas as well. Even now, I was actually listening to one while I was working on this piece. My favorite story that I've heard so far is Pen Pal. I really love that series. It is by far one of the best creepypastas I've listened to, and the writer actually turned it into an actual book. I haven't read it yet, but I do want to put that on my book list. It's a really good slow burn story, and as the story continues, you start sort of piecing together what's really going on, and it's really cool. I'm really hoping that the series will have a similar creeping horror, despite it not being the version that I had initially wanted it to be formatted in, but I'll try my best to do the story justice, or at the very least make it interesting. Even though I can't have it be in a video game form just yet, I think it'll still be good. I'm very excited to be making this into a story. The coloring for this piece was pretty streamlined. There wasn't anything too difficult. I originally had designed those shirts a while ago, so the colors were all pretty basic. I actually didn't use a color palette this time, but the shirts are meant to be obnoxious and stand out, so I don't particularly like them myself, but that was kind of the point of making them. I'm actually really impressed by my growth so far. I've been practicing a lot on my shading and doing different things to just, I guess, elevate my digital work. That's some of the stuff that I've been working on since I've been gone. So I actually really like the way that this turns out, especially with like the shading portion. And I think I'm starting to get a little bit better on my colors, which I think is nice. So I'm definitely learning a lot more in terms of techniques with digital art, which I'm super excited about, because I've been kind of stuck in that rut where like I know that I could draw better, but I can't, my skills aren't exactly where I want them to be. So I'm sort of climbing up a little bit in terms of skills. So I'm getting closer and closer to what my final vision will actually want to look like when it comes to drawing. So that's super exciting, because before it wasn't really like that. Since I'm always comparing myself to like my traditional art, you know, it was a lot different, and it's always been kind of a struggle from transitioning to digital from my traditional versions. But now I start to see how they kind of are getting closer to looking like how they would if they were traditional. That was always like a struggle for me, which is why I always ended up having to trace old art pieces. But like for this piece, I didn't have to do that. So my sketching's getting a little bit better, and it's getting a little bit closer to what it could be if I had done it traditionally. And that's super awesome, because now I don't have to stress myself out about it too much, which is always really fun. I wanted to keep the words that like bright red color, but also made them stand out a little bit. I still don't think that fault is like in the best placement, but you know, it is what it is, and I still think it came out pretty great. And so here are the two right next to each other. I think that the final came out really good, and I'm super proud of it. I'm so glad that I fixed it, and now I can finally get it off of my mind, and I won't ever have to think about it again. So anyway, yep, there's my update, a little bit about what I'm working on, and yeah. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button. If you want to join me and help this community grow, hit that subscribe button, and then you'll also find out when the series comes out. It probably won't come out till around Halloween, so we can get in on those creepy vibes, but yeah, I'm super excited for it, and I'm glad to be back and working on things. So yeah, I'm gonna be taking it easy for a while, but I'm super glad to be back. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!